It worked. Awesome. Cool. Good morning, Isabel. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Rudy?
I'm fantastic. Hey, why don't you move your mic a little closer to you, just so we can...
How about that?
Perfect. Welcome to Philly Startup Leader geez Louise, I can't even say it. That's a tongue twister there. Entrepreneur Expo. We are live at Rec Philly, which is pretty awesome. This is a great podcasting studio that they have here, WXPN Podcast Studio down in Rec Philly at Fashion District. So we're really thankful for them for helping to support, Philly startup leaders and give us this great space for us to conduct and produce and monitor and manage, all these events that we're doing here for Philly Startup Leaders Entrepreneur Expo. So I thought this would be great, opportunity to introduce myself and then also, hear a little bit more about you and your background and what we have planned for Philly Startup Leaders through 2021 and in the future. So for the folks who don't know, my name is Rudy Ellis. I'm the CEO of a local startup called Switchboard Live, and I'm also the board president of Philly Startup Leaders. And I'm a Philly resident, right? So I started a company down in Orlando, Florida, and my goal was always to come back to Philly and grow and build my business here. And so 2016, I had the opportunity to move back to the area, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And Philly Startup Leaders was a great opportunity for me to get connected to the community, right? How do I get involved? How do I learn where to go? How do I, navigate the scene? And so for me, not only being connected to Philly Startup Leaders was awesome, but just now serving on the board, right? Giving back. And so this is definitely an event that I look forward to on an annual basis. And I'm super excited to just be here and welcome Isabelle Kent to the podcast or the future Philly here. And if you could do me a favor and introduce yourself and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm Isabelle Kent. My story is not that unlike your own. I've been part of Philly Startup Leaders as a member for probably upwards of 8 years now. It was also very instrumental in my understanding of the community and getting involved in building my network here in Philadelphia. But my career has more or less been in Philadelphia. I've always lived here, even when I was working in other places. I'm coming from the HR technology space as a consultant, as a hiring manager, as an entrepreneur myself, and as a VP of growth for a job advertising company that uses programmatic ad tech. And so before that, I was with PR Newswire, managing a lot of accounts here in the region where I really got to know the enterprise side of what happens here in Philadelphia and so many of the companies that are massive, but we don't even realize are in our own backyard. And before that, I was with Ronstadt Technologies, did some work with the White House Tech Hire Initiative under the Obama administration, and got to know the inner workings of that side of the house, of using boot camps, of understanding how to develop technology talent. And then before that, I worked for a startup in the region. And, my career was really built around Philadelphia. And when I worked for that first startup, PSL was where I got my first introduction to the space. Before that, I worked in hospitality here at Sugar House Casino, and I had met someone that was an entrepreneur, had just sold a company to Oracle, and it kind of blew my mind because that was the first time I had ever really met an entrepreneur.
Really?
Yeah, like my parents were very entrepreneurial, but we didn't call it that because they still had jobs or they had, solopreneur-esque sort of ventures that they were involved in. But
Sure.
We were not part of a startup community or world in that sense. And so when I met somebody that had started their company, I was like, wait, you can just do that? That's an
course.
option. You can just solve problems and make money doing it. How cool. And kind of fell in love with innovation at that juncture. And PSL was where I got to know all the basics of how do you start a company, build my confidence to do that myself, but also get to learn from a lot of great people that have opened a lot of doors for me. And so now I kind of take a step back and think how crazy it is.
Full circle, right?
Yeah, it really did come full circle. It's such an honor to be leading the community that's done so much for me.
Well, that's awesome. That's a great story. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a lot of other folks out here can resonate with that as well, right? I too remember when I think I had to do one of those like startup grinds where you go back and kind of talk about your journey. And when I look back, when I left kind of the corporate world and I was working at this company, didn't I realize that it was actually a startup because I was hired to do one thing. And then like day 2 of the job, I was not even doing what I was hired because I was you're a generalist, right? You're wearing so many hats, you're doing so many things. And those are key things to have at the beginning stages of a company, someone that, or people, a team that can actually do a ton because obviously time and resources and capital are limited at that point. So that's cool. So how has the past 2.5 months been for you?
Just about, yeah.
Coming on board as the executive director.
Oh yeah, it's been drinking out of a fire hose. It's a lot, but I mean, you've gotten to know me a little bit in the
Sure.
last few months, and I'm a very high energy person. I love that. I love when there's too much going on. I kind of thrive in chaos, and
Hmm.
so not that PSL's at all chaotic, but certainly you're learning so much. You're meeting a lot of people, both folks that have been in the community forever that I've had relationships with, or that I've known for quite some time. But there's also a lot of newcomers,
Sure.
not only to Philadelphia, but to the PSL community, to our peer organizations. And so there's a lot of us that are starting at the same point and are also getting to know our organizations, but still trying to move quickly into the reopening and certainly to really rise to the opportunity that we have here to seize innovation in a period of innovation that I think is going to be unlike anything that I've certainly seen in my lifetime. And so it's been a lot to get to know everybody.
Right.
And I've had, hundreds of conversations at this point. But it's been amazing because, the joke I keep telling people is a couple years ago, you couldn't get Philadelphians to agree on pizza toppings. And like the community had different objectives and everyone was kind of on their own track. But now everyone's really come together. Everyone's aligned on the same mission and vision.
Right.
And that's great because it's going to take the entire village here in the Philadelphia area to get us to where we want to be as a city on national and global platforms. And so we can really support each other as a community as there's so many new people that are taking their first step into entrepreneurship. So, it's been already very enriching, and I feel like I learn 1,000 new things every day.
Got it. Well, follow-up question. So what is your favorite topping on a pizza?
Oh man, I like the works. I love variety. I love too many things. It's kind of a theme with me, and so I like everything on a pizza.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
I'm a plain guy. Just like
Yeah.
cheese. I do
It
like
has its place
margarita.
in the world too, though.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Next 90 days. So where's the focus, right? What are the priorities that we're focusing on over the next 90 days?
Yeah, well, getting through Philly Tech Week, I'm really excited that this came to fruition. We thought it was very important that even though it was kind of you're jumping right in with both feet. It was a quick turnaround for the event, but we really want to set the tone that, hey, we're back.
Yep.
Our community is back. Technically is back. Everyone's back. Like we're ready. We're ready to rumble. And so getting through Philly Tech Week was really important. But now as we look towards the summer, we're going to double down on the initiatives that have worked through my predecessor, Kiera Smalls, who did such a wonderful job building an incredible foundation for
Sure.
PSL over the
Yeah.
last few years. I mean, just powerhouse in every sense of the word, but really building on the work that she has done and now looking for other ways to engage the community. So some of the initiatives that we have coming up is we have Founded in Philly, which just our cohort graduated yesterday. So we have a happy hour with them tonight. We're very excited to meet them. So that'll be the first one. And then, of course, helping them get to that next stage in their development, whether that's accelerators, whether that's bringing their product to market, whether that's fundraising, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we're going to do a Welcome Wagon program, which is really to serve not only the newcomers to the greater Philadelphia area, which there are so many. I know that my building of 100 units alone, at least 10% are coming from Austin, San Francisco, New York. And we want to
Wow.
make sure that they have a place to get to know the community, start building relationships here, but also get a true Philly welcome and understand what it means to be a Philadelphian and to come from this city that has so much history and has so much character and really see it from our perspective. So we want to welcome everyone into the community, but also ensure that they're getting a little bit of that Philadelphian
I like it.
perspective.
Yeah.
Through the Welcome Wagon, we're gonna expand outward. We're gonna do lots of new programming focused on education, networking, really start to get the community engaged and energized again. We'd love to move to a new community platform to centralize all the channels that we have folks active right now. And that'll actually help us get more visibility and data of what's going on, what's working. We can tell the story of Philadelphia and our startup community even better and really ensure that we're connecting the community not just through PSL as the pass-through, but that everyone within our membership, which is now upwards of 5,000 members, is able to go seek each other out, and that we really set the tone that this is a community to utilize with your ask and your give, and that everyone that's involved is certainly encouraged to reach out to each other, network amongst themselves, try to do business with each other, learn from each other, and share that wisdom. And then, of course, as we move into the end of the year, we're going to be talking about upskilling, reskilling. How are we working with community partners to ensure that we're leveraging each other's resources, we're solving all the complex systemic challenges that exist in our community. And that we really look into how we can also champion new populations and new people that are bringing those ideas to the table. The age of innovation, we're going to see things come from every possible direction. And we need to embrace that. We need to know that we have to look everywhere for those solutions. We want to and make sure that through our virtual programming, which we're going to move to hybrid here at some point, that we're really reaching out into neighborhoods outside of Center City, that we're looking at the innovation that's happening in South Philly, West Philly, North Philly, all over the city, into the suburbs, at Delco, in Westchester, in the northeastern suburbs, New Jersey, Delaware. That entire region falls under our purview, and we want to make sure that we're reaching those entrepreneurs, and not just the college dorm room funds, but also the mid to senior career founders that have some great ideas and amazing networks, and that we're also engaging when we are talking to the universities, some of the smaller schools. We have upwards of 30 universities in the area. We want to make sure that that talent also has access to the resources they need, because we're going to see incredible solutions truly come from every possible angle.
Got it. With regards to the universities, had there been any outreach from some of the universities that want to get involved, and how can we tap into those resources? Because immediately I think we have some great, foundation universities here, but I'd love to hear, maybe some of the earlier conversations or things you can maybe share about that.
Yeah, totally. A couple of years ago when I was just starting out and as a PSL member, the question was, how do we combat brain drain? And how do we keep students here? Because it was a massive issue. And it seems like while we still want to have that conversation, people are really choosing to stay in Philadelphia after school. And we're seeing that on the rise for sure, because quite frankly, Philly is an awesome city to live in. It's far less expensive than our neighbors. It has a massive international community. We have airports and train stations. It's easy to get around. You have the beaches, you have the mountains, everything's really close. But we also have a lot of opportunity for economic development. And so young people are able to build really wonderful careers that are not only interesting and building skill sets for them and bring them fulfillment, but they're also providing the economic support that they need to really live the lifestyle that they want that otherwise would be out of reach in some of these larger economic corridors. And so when we talk to the universities, obviously we have Drexel, Penn, and Temple that are always at the forefront of conversations in Philadelphia, because they're excellent institutions that really produce some impressive talent. I mean, GoPuff, a $3.9 billion company, and it's your sponsor of ours. They're a dorm room fund that's 8 years old in Philadelphia that started out at Drexel University. That's incredible. But now we also have the smaller schools. So we talk to CCP and the programs they have there supporting entrepreneurship, not only tech-enabled, but also, mom and pop shops and those brick and mortar businesses that are essential to the quality of life here in Philly. And so they're doing some cool work. We've talked to them about how we can get involved more and create a deeper partnership. We've talked to Arcadia University, which is my alma mater, and Beth Lawrence, who's leading our events today. And we're trying to get them involved, because we never talked about entrepreneurship at Arcadia.
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, I was in a sociology program, and never once was, hey, you can start a business to solve social impact challenges or environmental impact challenges. That was never a conversation. And what we really want to do is look at these liberal arts schools like Arcadia, like Ursinus, Lehigh, all those schools. Rowan University was just on a panel with them, and really talk to these schools and talk to them about how you don't need to be a business major to innovate, but rather that is an outlet to achieve your goals in your career and solve the challenges that matter the most to you. And so we're starting to look at how we're able to pipeline that talent into our events, start getting them into internship and apprenticeship programs if they have nonlinear backgrounds, maybe from an area of study. And we're certainly talking to Wharton as well. They have a beautiful new entrepreneurship center. They've reached out several times looking to get more involved in the communities in their own backyard. And I think that that's such a wonderful initiative for them to really understand Philadelphia and how they play a role in our ecosystem, but also share those perspectives, share those resources, because Wharton students don't need as much support getting roles. They're kind of a shoo-in for employment, but they also can learn a lot from the other schools in the region, other communities in the region that might bring new ideas to the table. And that dialogue and finding complementary skill sets within our community, I think, is going to be critical.
So yeah, your comment about drinking from a fire hose, I definitely can hear that. It sounds like you've had a ton of conversations. How many conversations, if you had to put a number, have you had in the close to 2.5 months?
I mean, what was it, 260 when we had our board meeting a couple weeks ago? So probably closer to the 300 number now, and that includes office hours. That includes, mostly in or one-on-one conversations, but also some group conversations. Everyone's making introductions. People are reaching out from all over the community. It's been cool because I'm learning so much. There's so many organizations that I didn't realize they were working on certain things. I've learned so much about accelerators, and it's a lot of fun ideation. So the coolest thing about this job is that, it's my favorite three things. I get to ideate, network, and talk about Philly. So what more could you want?
I love it. I love it. That's a great segue, right? So, Founded in Philly is the cornerstone program of PSL. How has it evolved over the past year, and how do you envision this in the future?
Yeah, so I don't know if people know this, but I actually did the PSL Startup Boot Camp in 2016.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so I went through that. That's where I got to know Heather Cotter and some of the folks in the community that I'm still quite close with. And since then, it's changed so much. Back then, we were in the Boers or in the Curtis Center.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a physical space with very different programming and some speakers. Morgan, who's on our board, was actually one of the speakers for that cohort. And since then, it's really shifted. So now it's broken into Founded in Philly 1 and 2,
Right.
one that's the Idea Stage Accelerator, one that's the MVP ready one. And so that's really cool because you're able to service folks at different stages of their entrepreneurship journey. And that changes very rapidly for folks. Last year we had to move to an entirely remote model
Right.
because of COVID. And so today we're going to be meeting our cohort in person, but we've done it entirely remote. And so we anticipate that'll continue to be a hybrid model going forward because that allows us to now engage more folks outside of downtown. And that's really critical. But I've got to say, the one thing I've noticed with the Founded in Philly cohort that just graduated is it is significantly more diverse than it has been in the past. And I think that is an incredible path to be on. And certainly we have a lot more work to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at where Philly was 5-6 years ago, very different world, much more representative of the population here in Philadelphia. And because of that, we're tapping into better, brighter ideas. This is an idea stage cohort that just graduated. And yet some of these companies already have, their co-founders, they have their products. Some of them already have clients. Some of them are already raising money and have closed rounds.
No way.
It's baffling. And some of them have only started thinking about their companies as early as, last summer or November, and they're already that far along. I mean, the speed of innovation is something so different than what it was 8 years ago, where it really took a lot of time to build something. But now with the tools, the support structures that exist, folks are having ideas and seizing that opportunity and bringing things to market at an astronomical rate. So that's been really cool to see. Looking forward for what we want to do is ensure that we continue to segment out folks that are in the same place in their journey so they could share their resources, build that camaraderie and grow together. And we continue to put DEI at the front of everything that we do. We want to ensure that people know that this is an opportunity for them, that it's accessible, that they too can be entrepreneurs and build amazing things, and not just products and services for Philadelphia, but products and services that are going to serve the nation and maybe even the globe, and that's all within reach, and that we have the bright minds here in Philly to do that. But yeah, you'll see our pitch competition later today with some alumni from the program, and you'll see how far they've come. They're amazing. Some of these products are phenomenal. I'm excited for some of them. I'm talking to some of these founders in my office hours and offering them mentorship and learning so much from them. And I can't wait for some of these products to get to market. Actually, when we talk about Founded in Philly, the way that I even found the job with PSL was through Shannon Morales and her work with Tribaja, formerly Echo Me Forward. She's a PSL alum.
Yeah.
And so it really does come full circle.
Yeah, I actually remember talking with her during the kind of the intake, phase, probably. Yeah, I guess it'd been about a year ago, or even longer than that, right? When she went through the program. So, I will admit it is interesting to see because, a follow-up question would be, what would have been the alternative, right? Like if you had this idea, right? All right, I want to start this idea, or I want to pursue this passion that I have. Like, where do you go? Like, where do you start, right? Like, how would these companies have solved those needs if these accelerators weren't here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fumbling through information. On one side, we're living in a digital age where there's so much information, and so you can really find anything that you want online. But on the other side of that is that it's overwhelming. There's a lot of information that might not be relevant to you, or it might not be good quality information. And you do get a little bit of that overload. And so that could be challenging, is navigating and knowing where to start. And then also having a network, right? Whether you're searching for a job or starting a company, it's super important for you to have folks that you can lean on, not only to create those opportunities for you and open those doors, but also just be able to talk through things. Having those peer mentors that you can ideate and bounce ideas off of, but also, folks that can share that empathy with you because they've been there. They understand how challenging it is, and it's important to address that. We talked about mental health in our first session, and all of those resources were really siloed or scattered. So I know that when I've tried to start my companies, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of trial and error.
Same here.
Yeah, it's, you lose a lot of time, you lose a
Yeah.
lot of money, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're spinning your wheels. And that's, I think, how a lot of entrepreneurship has been for most folks, that with PSL, at least you can have that guided journey and that you're able to tap into resources and know kind of where to go and have folks to talk to. And I think that's so valuable. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how people were starting companies back in the good old days, because it must have been a much greater challenge. Yeah.
I bet. So, so how do we get Philly on the national, global scale that we, as Philadelphians, believe it should be?
Yeah, you know what? Philadelphians need to believe that a little bit harder, because, we have a community that's so rich in culture and character. I mean, like, everybody knows a Philadelphian, right? We have such a global reputation, but we don't brag enough about it, right? So, like, Philadelphians have kind of this reputation for. I heard Lauren Schwartz from the World Trade Center, I think, is the name of their organization, on a conference earlier this week, talk about how there's a term called Negadelphia, and because
What?
Philadelphians kind of like, they bash their own city a little bit, they give it a tough time, and sometimes that comes through. There's a long saying about how Philadelphia is not as bad as Philadelphians say it is, and we all kind of laugh about it, because I don't necessarily think that's Philadelphians being negative. I think that sometimes we have a little bit of a curt sense of humor here, but I think that knowing that the rest of the world communicates a little bit differently than we do, we need to brag about it more. We got to talk about it in the positive. We got to really speak to what's great about Philadelphia, because there's so much that you're not going to find anywhere else in the world. Like, Philly has that quality of life. We have that history. And we have folks here that are unlike anywhere else that I've been, for sure. And so I think that we need to brag about our successes. We need to understand our history in Philadelphia and how that's really informed how we operate.
Right.
We need to also own the fact that innovation is nothing new here. We've been innovating since our inception as a city. But in the last 50, 60 years, we've had $100 million exits. We've had massive exits here in the Philadelphia region. And so understanding that progression, I think, is super important. But also, I think that we need to own what we do well and bring that to national platforms, assume that space that we rightfully deserve on that national and global stage, and talk about how, hey, Philadelphia leads 1 to 3, depending on whether you're talking about employment or foundership, in DEI and STEM.
Really?
That's amazing. That's a conversation that we need to bring to the platform. Say, hey, you all are trying to do the same thing. We can share what worked, but we also are going to ask you for other types of information that we can now exchange to help us grow. We need to talk about how we're a massive hub for gene therapy, for biotech in general, for eds and meds. That's always been evergreen here in Philadelphia, but we also have telecom, media and entertainment, future of work, industry 4.0. Social impact. Philly solves Philly problems. We're a very engaged community, because if we can't get the support that we need, we go find our way to do that in our own backyard. And I think that that's an amazing story to tell too. So if we want to get Philly on that national and global stage, I think it comes down with us telling our story, owning that narrative, and really amplifying our voices, but also coming with an ask, coming for what we want from somewhere else, and offering information that we might have, and being a little bit more open with that sort of information, and really being more welcoming, and knowing that the dynamics across Philadelphia are going to change. Folks are going to keep moving here. But if we can control our narrative and we can do so with open arms, then that's really the best way forward.
What would be an ask, do you think? I would just leave it at that. What would be an ask if you had one?
Yeah, 2 things. We have a lot of amazing, generous sponsors here in Philadelphia. We have a lot of great folks in our ecosystem. But at the end of the day, Philly needs net new investment. We need folks outside of Philadelphia to realize that they're going to get far more ROI than they will in our neighbors here in New York. And while there's certainly benefits to it, many of those benefits, especially with COVID, we now know that you can build success anywhere, and you can operate from anywhere. And so we hope that more companies will consider moving to Philadelphia because of the massive talent community that we have here with the universities, but also we have a lot of great transitioning talent. We have a massive hospitality industry here. It's very tight-knit. And when you talk about go-to-market skill sets, you're going to have a hard time finding better talent than you will with transitioning talent from Philadelphia, because we don't take no for an answer. And we're not easily intimidated. So we know how to take an L, but we'll keep moving.
Tough chin, huh?
Yeah. And, so I think that we want more jobs here. We want more investment here. We welcome second offices or HQs, whether those are global or local companies. And we really want to make sure that companies are considering Philadelphia startups when they're looking for new ways to do innovative business. And I think that that's really the big ask that I have, for sure.
Got it. Got it. Well, I think we are probably wrapping up close on time. This was an amazing opportunity just to meet and talk and hopefully share some of the views of PSL and what we're looking to do throughout the coming years. And hopefully this will stir conversation throughout the day. And if people have any questions or comments, obviously follow us on all of our social channels and post any comments. Isabel, do you have any departing words, anything you want to say before we sign off?
That's it. Get active in PSL. We have a lot of things coming. We would like to get the community's opinions and involvement in all these things. We certainly want folks to feel like they can get involved and set the tone for the future of Philadelphia themselves. We want to hear from them. We're very open-minded. We're always open to feedback. And get ready because Philly's going to do some big things. Think globally, act locally. But
I like it.
Yeah, get excited for one exciting year ahead.
Think globally, act locally.
Yeah.
Is that something you made up or?
No, that's an ethos of mine for sure. But I think that's a lot of other people's ethos.
Got it. Well, cool. Philly Tech Week. We're live at the Rec Philly podcast studio. This is the Entrepreneur Expo of just Philly conversation, talking about all the cool things that we're doing here. I believe we have a next session starting at 10 o'clock. So we do. Do you know what that session is?
That is our
Investor Roundtable?
Yes, that's our Investor Roundtable.
There you go. That's a great topic, right?
Yes.
People have questions about capital and how to fundraise, so that would be great.
There's a lot of capital coming into Philly, so I'll leave that as our segue because there's a lot of investment locally, but also coming into Philly. We've exceeded our numbers the last few years in terms of the investment that we've seen in the region, and so if you're a company looking for money, it's there for you.
Let's do it.
Let's learn some good ways to go get it.
All righty. Well, thank you for your time, Isabel, and you have a great rest of the day. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Rudy. Take care.
Bye-bye.